Yes. Hello, welcome to our Dream to Rise podcast. This is Cynthia Concordia, your host. And we have a special guest here with us. And he was an agnostic police officer for 26 years and was exposed to many traumatic incidents. He achieved the rank of commander of a multi-jurisdictional narcotic task force. And in 1998, he was diagnosed with PTSD and then with an incurable, debilitating neuromuscular disease that caused loss of feeling, muscle strength, and mobility in his hands and feet. And this led to his being addicted to opioids, which were prescribed to alleviate pain. A lot of things happened, which led him to a 14-year prison sentence. However, he responded to God's calling through divine intervention through his daughter and got healed. He spent over 8 years in federal prison where he co-pastored the church and taught how God heals PTSD. In prison, he obtained a master's degree in theology and Christian counseling, then a doctorate in Christian counseling. He is now an addiction counselor, chaplain, and a Christian mental health coach specializing in trauma with the intent to start a first responder ministry. Let us welcome Mr. Norm Wielsch. Did I pronounce it correctly, your last
Yes,
name?
Welsh is fine. Yeah.
Wielsch. Okay,
Thank
good,
you.
good.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad that you were able to reach out to me when I posted that that I was needing some guests, and I'm glad that you resonated to the purpose of of this podcast, because I'm really focusing on the traumas we have experienced, how we were able to rise up, evolve, and now progressing. And I am so happy to have you here. So let us start, Norm. Can you tell us something, or probably share your story, that what happened to you and that brought you to where you are right now?
Oh, it's a long story, but I'm going to try to keep it really short.
Uh-huh.
So I was raised in a Christian family, but like most Christian families, we only went to church maybe once a year on Easter or maybe Christmas. So I didn't know hardly anything about God. And when I started working as a police officer, I saw some just horrific things, and not just me. I'm talking about all police officers. So whenever I say something that I've been through, I don't want to have it mean like woe is me or I'm the only one. Police officers out there, firemen out there all day long see these horrific things, and I really wasn't prepared because I didn't know how to handle all these things. And when you see death, almost on a daily basis, it really brings you down. So I had a really difficult time in understanding who God was. So I really didn't believe, because in my mind, if there's so much trouble and suffering in the world, how can there be a loving God, right? But I just didn't know who he was. So I went through basically most of my career not knowing who he was. I worked all sorts of different assignments and stuff, eventually ending up in narcotics. And I did about 16 years in narcotics. And you see a bunch of horrific stuff happening to children there too. In 1998, I got diagnosed with what's called peripheral neuropathy. So that's really common in diabetics, but I'm not a diabetic. And then what that is you lose all the nerves and endings in your hands and your feet. And then to complicate that, I got diagnosed with a Charcot-Marie tooth disease, which is an atrophy of the muscles in the extremities. So what was happening is my feet required about 30 surgeries in a 10-year period.
Oh my.
And during the stress of all that, what happened is my PTSD symptoms started to come out. And I was later learned that, if you've been through a traumatic event and you haven't experienced any symptoms of it, it can come out during other stressful events. So I started having panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I was hypervigilant, nightmares. And so when I went through these surgeries, they were giving me all kinds of Vicodin and Percocet, all the opioid pain medications that they normally give.
Mm-hmm.
And the feelings in my feet were gone. So I used those, or I found when I took those that it numbed my emotions. I didn't feel anything. So instead of for pain, I started using those pills for emotional pain. In other words, they just make you steady. They you don't feel anything. And I went through that for a long time. And what happened is through the surgeries, my feet were basically deformed now. I need braces to walk. I can't stand up, straight with balance. I always
Mhm.
have to hold on to something. And then about 2008, my hands started to do it. So I don't know if you can see, but I can't. I started not being
Oh,
able to, yeah, button buttons. I barely tie my shoes still,
uh-huh.
and it was getting very difficult to use my duty weapon. The police have guns, and I was just trying to make a few more years to retirement because I was not really fit for duty between the pills, the emotional problems, and my hands. But luckily, I was high in command, so I didn't really work the streets that much anymore. But I was out with the guys all the time. So really, I shouldn't have been working. And but the warrior mentality that first responders have is that you never admit you're weak, and you always go through what you're supposed to do. And that's what, see, a lot of people ask me, well, why didn't you just ask for help? You can't do that, because once you ask for help and you admit to an emotional problem or illness, nobody will ever work with you again. And the first thing they do is they take your gun and your badge, they send you home. And then if you do come back, that no one will work with you. So
Oh my.
I was going
So
through all
so
that.
don't you have in the police in your job wherein you could share what you're feeling to your supervisor or whatever, or any psychologist or who could
Yes.
provide therapy?
Yes, well, they do have well, I worked for both the city and the state, so they do have both city and state psychologists that you can
Mhm.
talk to, but you have to request it and they have to approve it. That's where the problem becomes. So if I said to my sergeant or my boss at the time, whoever it was, that hey, last night I put a gun in my mouth and I really was thinking about committing suicide, the first thing they would do is take your gun and take your badge, and then they would send you to the psychologist. But they won't keep it a secret. Everybody will know, and then you'll
Oh,
never get promoted again. No one will ever work with you. No one will ever trust you. So yes, they do offer it, but the culture is such where you cannot do it. You just can't. Some guys go and seek help on the side, through outside counselors. But as you know, that could be 150, $200 an hour, and a lot of the guys don't have that kind of money.
oh
So
my. So it's
plus,
also risky. You might.
yeah, yeah, and that's why there's a lot of police officers, not all of them, but there's a lot of police officers that are alcoholics, because that's the way they numb their emotions. And I know there's a lot of guys that are using pills also, Vicodin and stuff to numb their emotions.
Oh
So
my.
I thought I was handling everything pretty well, but then my daughter got sick. She was 24 at the time, and she got liver tumors. And these liver tumors were so severe that the only UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles could do the surgery, because it's a special surgery. And the doctors told us that, well, she might not make the surgery. It might be a 50-50 chance to survive.
Oh
And
my.
that sent me down a hole that I could never recover from, because in your warped mind, in your emotional pain and in the pills and everything, in my mind, I thought, okay, my DNA is messed up because I have all these issues. And so she has my DNA. So now I'm basically responsible for her dying at a young age. And I know that's faulty thinking. I see it now, but at the time, that's the way I thought. So I attempted suicide a couple times, and thank God, God stopped that. And then I started making some bad decisions, and ended up getting indicted. What I did was, there was some drugs in the evidence, and one of the guys I knew needed some to pay off some bills. and I took it out of evidence and gave it to him, which was the stupidest thing I ever did in my life. But you have to understand that you're not in your right mind when all this is going on, and not
So
to say that's
what was that evidence?
oh, drugs.
Ah, the drugs. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And like I said, I'm not making any excuses. These were all my decisions. I'm
Yes.
not blaming the drugs. I'm not blaming other people. I'm just saying that there's always mitigating factors. In other words, there's reasons why the people do the things they do. If there's reasons why people are stealing, there's reasons why people, like we just talked about San Francisco off camera, and San Francisco is inundated with drug addicts. There's reasons why these drug addicts do the things they do, and sleep on the cement,
Yes.
and they steal from stores. Is the mental illness is the main driving factor.
Oh my.
So I was caught the first time, which was good because I didn't want to do anything more. And when I was on bail, I got arrested and I bailed out of jail. Excuse my allergies.
No, it's okay.
I bailed out of jail, and when I was at home with my wife, a pastor called. I never met this man, but he got my phone number from a friend of my father's.
Uh-huh.
So he calls me and he says, "Hi, his name is Pastor Jeff Kenny," and he said, "My name, I have a church, and I'd love for you to come. We do counseling, and I understand what you're going through. Maybe we can help." Now, remember, I don't believe in God at this point, so I'm not really listening to him, but I'm being polite. My mom taught me to be polite to people,
Mhm.
and I said, "Yeah, okay, maybe go, maybe not. I don't know." But what he did, what was really interesting, is he said, "Well, before I hang up, can I pray with you?" And I said, "Sure." And what he did is he prayed the sinner's prayer, and I had no idea what the sinner's prayer was.
Mhm.
And at the end, he said, "Do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior?" And I said, "Yeah." I mean, I didn't really know what I was saying. I was just probably trying to get rid of him. And I said, "Yes." And then he hung up. So I went back to my wife, and she noticed something. She says, "Well, are you okay?" And I thought about it. I said, I'm actually feeling a little bit better. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't immaculate, thing, or a divine thing that happened, but I felt better. And she was raised Christian, but she never argued with me about it because she knew my feelings. So ended up going to church the next week, and everything was just wonderful. I mean, the church was so loving and accepting. The pastor was a great pastor and great sermons. So I started to go to church, although I didn't really 100% believe yet in God. So my daughter needed to have a biopsy, and when the pastor found out about that, one Sunday he stopped his sermon and said, "Listen, I want to pray for Norma and his daughter because she's going in for a biopsy." And the whole congregation prayed for her healing. A couple of weeks later, we go in for the biopsy. A couple of weeks after that, we go to the doctor's office, and the doctor had us redo some CT scans on her liver. And when we finally met with the doctor, he said there's normal liver tissue. He can't find the tumors; they're gone. And first I got mad. I thought that he misdiagnosed everything, but he showed me the scans, the one with the tumors and then one with the clean. And he showed me the UCLA Medical Center's secondary opinion. And that's when I truly believed in God. And that's when it hit me and I was on fire.
Oh
And
my.
that's a wonderful day. Yeah, a wonderful day.
Wonderful.
And
So
she's healthy.
now, from that time on, how many years ago that was that when you
That was in 10. That was 2010.
2010, and
Mhm.
now you are committed, and now you're even a chaplain and took up theology, and oh
Mhm.
my.
Yeah, God is good. So I
I
ended up
I truly believe, no? Sometimes there was a time when I had this problem with me, no? I kept on telling myself, why? Why me?
mm,
No.
yeah.
And then God would just probably a message would be sent to me that why not? We have he has to send or to take us to a journey wherein we have to really fall
Yes.
fall on our knees and then probably fall flat before
Yes.
we realize that our lessons. And
Yes.
that's when but it really depends on us. Are we willing to accept
Yeah.
the change and
Yeah.
our mindset? How do
Yeah.
you look at it? Do you look at it as an opportunity, or is it as a punishment? Sometimes we look at it as a punishment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Exactly. You know,
Wonder.
sometimes he allows us to make mistakes that bring us to the lowest point of our lives, so that we'll look up to him, you know, and seek him out. You're exactly right.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And so what was your um biggest lesson from this?
Oh gosh, the biggest lesson was to trust God. I mean, that's the hardest part for everyone, all of us. I believe everybody's got the same issues, trusting in Him. You know, through my journey of going to the seminary and then getting an addiction a license and stuff. I prayed in prison. So much stuff happened at home where I could do nothing. I was there, but through prayer, I learned that when you pray and you trust, things will work out. You know, there was many things that my kids were going through and my wife was going through, and all I did was pray. A few days later, you know, I got a phone call or an email saying everything's fine, and through that I learned trust. But that's the hardest thing to do, is learn and
Yeah,
to really trust him. And if we could get to that point, all of us, to get to that point where if I pray and I trust that he will make something good happen, which he promises in the Bible. Romans 8:28 says that all things work for the good. You know, so not just good things work for the good, no, bad things. If you're going through a disease, a financial problem, a divorce, whatever, as long as you love God and trust him, something will come good out of it. You know,
I
we
be-
may not experience that good for a month, a year, 5 years, but soon, when I look back now, all the things that happened were divine intervention. I truly believe that. At the time, I hated everything. I was like, why me? Just like you said, why me? Why me? What's going on? But now I see God's fingerprints all over it.
yeah.
And sometimes he allows us to go through things and experience pain, so that when he helps us come out of the pain, and this is in Corinthians, it says that when you come out of it, you will be able to help others going through the same thing. And that's what Christianity is all about, right? Is helping each other.
I believe in you, because that's what happened to me
Mm.
after my abusive I had an abusive relationship with my husband, and he died of a massive cardiac arrest after his second restraining order, and I was being blamed by his family because
Yeah.
of the stress of the restraining order. And I was in that uh, position wherein I stopped engaging with people for 6 years, because
Oh boy.
during the restraining order, he was given, my son even requested for a 2 year instead of a temporary restraining order. And then it was my daughter who initiated the call. So
Mm.
that was the impact of his behavior to the family. We were living in fear. And then when he passed away, his family blocked us off. Now, 9 years, they haven't seen their grandchildren.
Mm.
And I just told my children, we tried our best to reach out, but then let's just respect their decision. It's hard to lose a son. And and it took me some time, and I didn't find any value in my life during that time because of fear. I'll be judged, I'll be rejected.
Mm.
I was a failure as a mom and as a wife. My only strength was with God.
Yeah.
I stopped engaging with people, but I had a very close relationship with God. It took
Wow.
me some time, but then when I started creating a dream for my son to go to college,
Mm.
uh, by design, not by default, because by default I'll be constricted by my past pains and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I Manifestation started happening. He wanted to go to CIA,
Oh
Culinary
wow.
Institute of America.
Yeah.
As a single mom, as a single earner, where will I get the money?
Yeah.
But I used to work for the World Bank. Suddenly, out of nowhere, I've been applying for 7 years to become an analyst. I was a program assistant. Suddenly, there was a program, the GE Readiness Program, wherein I applied. Out of 850 plus globally who applied, 25 were declared GE ready, and I was one of them. And then someone called me asked me for my availability for, for an interview. I immediately accepted it, but I never applied for that. And then she told me, we just got 6 to be interviewed from the 25. And I got the position. That was the first manifestation. And then someone advised me, Cynthia, why won't you downsize? I took action. I sold my 3-bedroom townhouse and moved to a 1-bedroom condo. It saved me 60% of my monthly mortgage. Another manifestation. And then someone asked me, why won't you apply for grants and scholarships? We were not eligible for that one because we're an employee of an international organization. I'm glad my son was a US citizen. So instead of paying 50,000 for the first year's tuition, we only paid 11,000.
Wow.
Those were manifestation. And now my son works, he used to work for 2-3 Michelin star restaurants. He was able to travel to gain experience. Now in California to manage 13 schools in that school district on how to help prepare food from scratch, meals for the students instead of processed food, advocating sustainability in the food industry. My daughter is a project manager in one of the government contracting firms. Now she's also a firefighter, volunteer firefighter, because it was the volunteer firefighter who tried to revive her dad when he collapsed. So now it was her time to give back, to save lives. And I'm so thankful. Oh, praise the Lord. It was really God who orchestrated everything. And now I am doing what I'm doing, being a transformational life coach, having being an author, published author, and a podcaster and a speaker, because I just want to spread the word that, hey, there's truly light at the end of the tunnel. God is in control, and when I know when God is there, is present, nothing is impossible. Yes.
Great story. Awesome. But you know, your husband's family, most of us live the same way, right? When someone betrays us or harms us, we're so angry, we're bitter, resentful. We hold on to that, and that's what keeps us oppressed. That's what keeps us sad. I mean, like you said, what they are missing out on, they don't have to have a relationship with you, but that your children did nothing to him. So that's one of the reasons.
Probably it's because my daughter was the one who initiated the call.
Oh, I'm sure that they have their reasons, but what I'm saying is this is why I wrote my book too, and doing the same thing you're doing is trying to get the word out that there's healing. You don't have to live with that anger. You don't have to live with that resentment. Ways of getting back at people and always living a victim lifestyle. We'll never forget the things that happen to us, the bad things. But what we want to do is we want to have a relationship with God and get the healing so that those things that happen to us don't impact our daily lives and don't control our lives. Because those people, I'm sure, I mean, I'm sure they're great people, but those people are being controlled by their anger and their hatred. So it's hard for them to live a joyful, peaceful life when you're angry all the time.
Exactly.
And that's what my whole book's about.
That's why I always tell even my children, learn to forgive, because forgiveness is about you releasing yourself from that chain of resentment, of pain, of anger. Because once you're free, I'm sure you'll see life in a different perspective.
Yes.
Oh my. And I'm glad that my children are now having I'm so happy that my daughter is now happily married. My son is there, really impacting other people, creating
Awesome.
ripple effects, that ripples to other people.
Yeah.
And it is, and I'm so happy that God was really with me
Mm.
during that time.
Yeah. Great story. Great story.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, you
Your
know, so
story was also when I just saw your, oh my, when I heard you about, you've also reached a point wherein you had to be in prison. You
mm,
had to, uh, I mean, you even mentioned that, thank you that you were caught, because that
mm,
is the time for you to make the change, because you really need to see that what was really happening to me.
yes,
I need the lesson.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes.
And I was hoping that my husband would be awakened by what he was doing, but
Mm,
then he was also mad at us. He was
yeah,
I don't know, because probably being influenced by the family as well. But I know he is a good guy. That's why I kept reminding the children, your
yeah,
dad loves you so much.
yeah.
And I'm glad that they also invited him to their graduation ceremonies.
Oh,
So
good,
that
good, good.
means forgiveness is taking place.
Yeah.
Oh my, I just love your story. And
Mm.
now, how are you helping uh those who are in that situation where
Mm.
you had before, no?
Yeah.
But so have you helped survivors?
Yeah. So when I was in prison, I got all the degrees that I needed to get. And as soon as I got out, I started working for or as a drug and alcohol counselor. So I work currently in a men's residential facility, trying to help men try to recover from the alcohol and drug problems they have. But I'm specialized in trauma. So when they have some type of trauma, yeah, that's when I try to work with them. Um, it's all this, most of these guys are all the same, are they have some prior resentment or anger issue. Some of them have been victims of trauma in the past, as childhood trauma, either molestations or beatings. And what happens is a lot of people don't understand how when we're traumatized at a young age, we carry that through to adulthood, and
Yes.
it manifests in our behavior, and it's normally negative behavior, because what we're doing is we're still hurting. A lot of us we don't know why we're hurting, and because we don't know why and we don't want to feel the way we feel, we use drugs and alcohol in order to cover that up. Sometimes we use gambling, sometimes sex, we get sex addicts. Food, we'll use food to make us feel better. There's a whole wide variety
But those
of
are
behavioral addictions.
temporary. Those are
Yes,
temporary.
they work, but they only work for a short time. And
Yeah.
the way I like to say it, and people understand it a little bit better, is when we're born, because of the fall of man. When we're born with a hole in our heart, and through our entire lives, what we try to do is we try to fill that hole with maybe women or men, power, money,
Mhm.
um, items, cars and
Material
houses
things.
and all
Mhm.
this stuff. But like you just said, it's all temporary. It might make you feel better for a small amount of time, but then you're always searching for the next. Okay, so now I have a Corvette. So, but that's not good enough. So maybe now I'll be happy when I buy a Ferrari.
Mhm.
And we go through our whole lives doing that, and it will never help, because that hole is God shaped, right? We're designed and created to be in one with God, in fellowship with God. So when we come to Jesus, Jesus fills and makes our heart whole, WHOLE, whole.
Mhm.
And that's the only time when we can really be at peace. And for years, I mean, I went through bouts of depression for years and years before any of this happen, but back in the early years and stuff. And my wife begged me, please, please seek help. There's something wrong. I see something wrong. But we never believe that there's anything wrong. Okay, this is just, I'm strong enough. I'll get over this. But it's only Jesus can heal. I truly believe in secular counselors and psychiatrists. They can really help you. But what I found after 3 years of myself going through secular counseling and psychiatrists is that only God can heal. These secular means can give you good coping skills and coping mechanisms, but do we really want to cope with these issues our entire life, or do we want to heal them and move forward? And that's why I wrote this book too, was because we can do it. Just like you're healed, your kids are healed, I'm healed, my kids are saved. With God, nothing's impossible, and He
Yes.
promises peace, and He'll give that peace to you if you just seek it.
Yes, I agree. Amen. And what's the title of your book?
It's called Christ-Centered Healing of Trauma, and then the secondary title is Healing a Broken Heart. Because I think when we're traumatized, it's a breaking of the heart, right? Because people betray us and people do things happen to us that just break our heart. So
Mm-hmm.
Christ-Centered Healing of Trauma. It's on Amazon. You can get through my website at christ-centeredhealing.com. And the book isn't really the important thing. It's the message. And most of us go through life, like, for instance, your husband. I'm sure that he had issues that he needed to deal with. And in his culture, that the Asian culture,
Yeah, the
my,
Philippines.
yeah, my dad from Germany, Hispanic culture, Spanish, the machoism, the
Mm-hmm.
manliness, it prevents you from seeking help. And it, you don't have to live like that. You could go through a divorce and still be sad and be suffer grief from the loss, but you can still move forward. And that's why I feel for people like that. They just don't want to. And that's what's happening in the first responder thing too. And eventually I want to start a first responder ministry, because they really need the help. And the problem is right now is that they don't like me too much because I was in jail. So I'm having to come back from that and to kind of prove myself. And once that happens, I really hope to start a first responder ministry, because it's so important for their mental health.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I feel bad, no? When you when they hear that you come from jail, you're already being judged. And I just don't, even the drug addicts. I have um I feel bad because, oh, they're addicts, but actually they went through so much as well. That's why they use drugs. It's just a matter of really going out and then understanding, see where they're coming from. Even my
Mhm.
husband, I've discovered from my sister-in-law that he was really abused as well when he was young.
Yeah. See, and that's
So
what happens. It carries over from childhood, you know.
exactly, and then it goes on from one generation to
Yeah.
another generation. So I was telling, actually, through my journey, what have I learned? I was able to stop or interrupt the the domestic abuse
Cycle.
within the family, the cycle.
Yeah, this cycle. Yeah.
And I kept telling my children what he did was wrong. So I just hope this will serve as a lesson for you.
Yeah.
And
And you stop that cycle, right? Because if you
yes,
wouldn't do anything, most likely your son, because he learned
that
behavior from
it must
his,
be normal.
it
It's
must be normal.
normal. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's
Uh-huh.
good. I'm proud of you. That's awesome.
But it's hard. It's hard. And we
Yeah.
had to lose him. And I was really hoping that we could get back together. But then probably God has a better plan for me.
He
Uh,
does. He does.
uh-huh. I'm so I'm so I'm just so touched whenever I hear a lot stories like this, wherein other people would judge us or would judge you, no?
Mm.
Me, I was judged. Up to now, some of
Yeah.
our common friends, they blocked me also. They stopped talking
Yeah.
to me, and even my
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Nothing.
Recreate your life.
That's right. And that's one of the other things I've learned through this process is you cannot stress over things you cannot control. You can
Yes,
never control other people. If they don't like you, uh, we as humans always want to have our approval from friends. We want to
yes.
be, patted on the back and stuff. And if it doesn't happen, we're always, oh my gosh, why don't they like me? What did I do?
We
But
always
you
want to
can't.
belong.
Yeah, but you can't control that, and it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but we have to get to a point where, if I've tried to be nice to this person, for some reason they don't like me, I'm going to move on because I'm
Exactly.
not going to deal with resentments. And then myself, right? I'm going, what's wrong with me that they don't like me? No, no. Some people just don't like some people, and we
Yes,
can never be perfect. We can never please people. Only Jesus is the only perfect one, so
exactly.
it's, yeah,
And and you have that control to respond to a situation. You have
yes,
control to see things in a different perspective. And if you're not aligned with their values and their dream and with your dream, then it's not. I don't think it's a sin
yeah,
to distance yourself,
no,
right?
no, no,
No.
no. It's you just don't get along, and this is the biggest thing that I get from most of the guys that I talk to about childhood trauma. They hate their parents. They really resent and hate their parents for what they did.
Uh-huh.
But if you truly, study the Bible, first of all, God warns us that we have to respect our parents
Yes.
and honor them. But a lot of parents don't deserve to be honored, right? So what do we do? The only thing you could do is acknowledge them as your parent, say thank you for bringing me into this world, and I forgive you for the harm that you've done to me, or what you did to me. It's not right. It's not right. It's not fair. But I still thank you for bringing me into this world. And that's really all you could do. You don't have to go to Thanksgiving dinner with them.
Mhm.
You can, that relationship can be over.
Mhm.
But because, the Bible says also that you don't hold your anger overnight. See, these are the things that we all do normally, and really we don't think it's a sin. Okay, yeah, stealing drugs is a sin, or being a bad cop is a sin. Yeah, it is. But hating other people, resenting other people, not forgiving other people, being angry at other people, that's a sin too, and people don't realize it. And that's what makes me laugh, is when the friends that I used to have don't talk to me now, but they're full of anger and hate. They're not doing criminal things, and they're not addiction or anything like that, but emotionally they're doing all the stuff Jesus warns us about.
Yeah.
Do not, if you hate somebody, it's just like killing them.
Mhm.
Don't hold your
Exactly.
anger overnight. If you don't forgive, God will not forgive you. And these principles are all laid out in my book in simple language so you can understand them,
Mhm.
because they are so important. These are principles that we have to live by, because if we live angry and resentful at people, truly you're living in sin, and that sin blocks you from healing.
Mhm. Because you're creating a wall instead of
Yeah,
seeing life in a different perspective. uh you're missing the joy and happiness that life
yeah,
is offering you. You're
that's right.
not living
Yeah,
your life to the fullest.
yeah,
And God, that is God's gift to us. So
yeah,
given the talent, the gift he gave us, make use of our gifts to
yes,
serve others. And that's
yes.
what we're doing now. Wonderful, wonderful. So now you're doing this program of coaching. What is now your next goal for the next 12 months?
My next goal is to learn more about chaplaincy. I've been a chaplain now for over a year. It's going well, but what I really, like I said, what I really want to do is be a first responder chaplain. So am working hard and learning the most I can learn, and continue on with the addiction counseling, because there's so many wounded people out there, and even if we can only get them a couple at a time, that's really what our job is. And God has put me in a position to not only help people but get paid for it. So I'm really grateful for that. But yeah,
Mhm.
that ministry is my main goal. I don't know if it will ever
How
happen.
how
you
will
know
you do it?
I don't know. I do counsel some police officers that have addiction problems.
Uh-huh.
So I'll do that on the side. Some emotional issues. A lot of them will never admit that they know me, which I guess is okay, because if you're associated with somebody that's been in prison, their department is going to look at them closer. I mean, well, what are you doing? Which is
Uh-huh.
really ridiculous. But I get it. I was there. I understand it. It's the culture. It's the us against them mentality that police and fire have. In some cases it's justified. But that's not a way to live out a career, a positive career. All the retired guys I know are all, well, I shouldn't say all of them. A majority of them are all miserable people because they harbor this anger and resentment and racism and stuff in their hearts because they've had a long bad career.
Mhm. I was about to ask you, what would be your major roadblock in achieving this goal? You mentioned about their willingness, no? And then the how they stereotype all those who got
Mm-hmm.
jailed and so
Yeah.
on, no?
Yeah, it's difficult. I was there too. I did the same thing. Back in my day, it was tattoos. If you had tattoos, especially on your arms or on your neck, you were a bad person, right? But now almost all the cops have tattoos themselves all over the
Even the
place.
children now.
Even the children, the police officers, the fire, doctors. I've seen doctors with tattoos all up and down
Tattoos,
their arms.
yes.
So you can't go by that anymore. But that was me judging them unfairly just
Uh,
because of an outward appearance, right? And
yeah,
they're judging me by one of the things I did. They're not judging me by the 26 years of good things I've done. They're judging me by the one day that
one.
I did something stupid. Yeah. So,
Actually,
and
that
I get it. I understand it. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to go one at a time. I'm hoping that each cop that I help is going to tell somebody else and tell somebody else and tell somebody else. And if it doesn't happen, it's not God's plan. It's that simple. If God wants me to do it, he will make a way for it to be done, either now or 2 3 5 years from now. It'll be okay, because I do trust in God's plan right now.
that's nice. Yes. God will always make a way. So
Yeah.
before we end, what is your one simple advice you could share to our listeners right now?
Well, if it's regarding having emotional pain from something that happened to you in the past, ask for help. you know um, go to your, if you're a Christian, go to your church. Each church has pastoral care counselors, and you can talk to them, and they will show you the way to begin that healing process. If you're afraid to, you get my book and learn how to begin that healing process yourself. But the main message I want to give is that you said it earlier, there is healing. You have to seek it out, though. It's not just going to come. So when I say trust God, you can't just say, okay, I want to be healed, God. I mean, he can do that.
Just
He
wait,
can do that.
no, it's not that.
But yeah, but you have to take steps, right? You have to
Exactly.
reach out and ask for help, whether it be through these books. My book is not a self-help book. It's a book that's really going to take you on a path where it's going to be painful. I'm sure, like you said, you went through a lot of pain during your healing process. You have to acknowledge what your role in your pain. You have to acknowledge the sinful acts that you've done, like I was just said about judging people, being angry at people, unforgiving. We have to cleanse all that out. So I'll call it a spiritual cleansing.
Mhm.
And sometimes when you relive these past traumas, it's difficult, but you have to expose those prior things out into the open. Now,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to tell another person. I mean, it's always better that you tell a trusted person. But in my book, I recommend journaling for those who do
Yes.
not want to talk to people.
Mhm.
Get it out. It allows your mind and your heart to process it all over again. And the more you tell your story, we do this with veterans, combat veterans, is we have them tell their stories over and over in a safe place, tell it over and over again. And it's almost to nauseum, right? But the more you tell your story, even if it's in journaling, the less power it's going to have over you. And that's really what healing will start. You will never forget, but we're going to try to get that power it has over you away. So those would be my suggestions.
Exactly. And the more you share your story to others, the more you remove yourself from that chain of the chains, and you gain freedom. It was hard for me to share my story before, but but then I've realized when I had my coach, I've realized, look at you now. You've gained so much freedom, and now you're a lot free, a lot happier than before, and you feel fulfilled because my intention is now to help. It's not more about about doing revenge or what. No, it's not that. It's about helping those who are struggling, who has still no voice. And it's not a weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength. I could see it as a sign of strength because you have that courage to go out and seek for help.
Yes.
And most of the time, it's pride and ego that stops us.
Right.
Stop us from doing. Oh, thank you so much. How can they connect with you? Would you like to share how your contact information, website, and how they could see you on Facebook, social media?
Yeah, my website again is Christ dash or hyphen centeredhealing.com. And then my Facebook is the same, Christ Centered Healing. If Instagram's the same, Christ Centered Healing. In all those, you can get information on where the book is. I put something out almost daily, a tip to living a better life and to begin that healing process. So any of those, if you have any questions, you can email me through that website, and I'll try to answer any questions I have. But don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes, I agree. Amen. Thank you so much, Norm, and it's an honor to have you here as my guest. I'm sure you've inspired so many of our listeners, may it be police officer or whoever. But what you're doing is amazing, and we are that light now, sharing that light so others may also share their light for others. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me and let me get my message out.
Okay, for sure, because they're only waiting for our stories.
Yep.
So, thank you, and to all the listeners, thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next episode.